Maeve Dunbar had spent 3 weeks practicing what she would say. She rehearsed it in the shower on the SkyTrain, between stripping beds and restocking trolleys at the Meridian Hotel in downtown Vancouver, where she had worked for 6 years before Silviu Cretu walked into her life and rearranged it without asking. She had told herself that once the envelope was on his desk, the hardest part would be done. She was wrong by a considerable margin. 30 seconds after the manila envelope landed on the polished leather surface of Silviu's desk, a low mechanical hum moved through the floorboards of the West Vancouver estate, rising up through the soles of her shoes. And then every lock in the house engaged, all of them simultaneously, with a sound like something being permanently sealed from the inside. The study in Silviu Cretu's estate on the ridge above Horseshoe Bay always carried a particular smell. Cedar from the paneled walls, rain from the November air pressing against the windows that faced the inlet, and something underneath both of those things, something cold and controlled that Maeve had spent 2 years trying to name and never quite managed. It was the smell of a man who had built an empire out of the Vancouver docks and who had never once, in her presence, shown any doubt that the empire would hold. Maeve had grown up in a basement suite in East Van, the oldest of 3 children, in a home where the winter heating bill was a monthly negotiation and new shoes happened when the old ones gave out. She had taken the hotel job at 19 because it paid steadily and asked nothing of her she couldn't give. She was practical, she was physically strong. At 270 pounds, she could flip a king mattress without help and had been doing it since she was 22. And she had a talent for making disordered rooms feel inhabited and cared for. It was not the life she had imagined, but she had been proud of it. Silviu had come into the Meridian ballroom for a private function 3 years ago. She had been carrying a tray of dirty glasses across the floor and had walked directly into him. She could still feel the specific embarrassment of it, the glasses rattling, his arm shooting out, and he had caught the tray before a single glass went over. He had looked at her with dark eyes and said, without condescension and without the elaborate graciousness of a man who thought he was doing her a favor, "Are you all right?" As though her answer was what mattered. She had told herself for 6 months after that nothing would come of it, and then it did. Now she stood at the edge of his Persian rug at 11:30 at night, her hands pressed flat against the thighs of her jeans to keep them from shaking visibly, and watched her husband look at the envelope she had just placed on his desk. Silviu was 43. The silver in his hair had spread since they married. It threaded through the dark at his temples now, gave him a gravity he hadn't needed to borrow from anywhere. He was reviewing something when she came in, documents that looked like shipping invoices, and probably were not. He had looked up when she entered, and his expression had been the thing it always was when he looked at her, unhurried, present in a way that most people were not. "You're still up," he said. "I need to give you something," she said, and then she stepped forward and put the envelope down. He looked at it for a moment without reaching for it. Then he picked it up, broke the seal with his thumb, and read. He aligned the pages when he was done. He'd set them back on the desk. "Maeve," he said quietly, just her name. "They're divorce papers," she said. "I've already signed. I just need yours." She made herself hold his gaze. "I can't stay here. I've tried to tell myself I could live with what you do, and I can't. I look at you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm terrified of you in the same breath, and I don't know how to keep living inside that. I'm not angry. I'm not punishing you. I'm done drowning slowly and pretending it's swimming." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "There's a car at the south gate. I packed a bag this morning." Silviu said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Is there a time you need to be at the gate?" The question was odd, not the question she expected. "Midnight," she said, before she could think about why she shouldn't. He nodded once, He stood, came around the desk, and walked to the far wall of the study, where a cedar panel she had always taken for decorative slid open under his palm to reveal a small keypad. She had asked about it once, in the first weeks she lived here. He had told her it was the building management system. She had believed him because she had not yet learned to inventory his silences. He typed a code, he pressed one key. The hums started in the floor. Then all the locks in the house engaged at once, and the sound was final in a way that sound rarely was. Maeve crossed to the door in 4 steps. She put both hands on the handle and pulled with the full weight of her body behind it. And she was not a small woman. She had been hauling linen carts since she was 21, and her arms knew the difference between something that would give and something that would not. This door did not give. It did not move by a single centimeter. She turned back to him. Open it. Silviu had returned to his desk. He poured 2 fingers of Canadian rye into a glass. It was the one habit he had developed in this country that he hadn't had in Romania. The one thing he ever said felt like belonging somewhere, and he sat down without hurry. Sit down, Maeve. I said, open the door. I heard you. He set down the glass. Sit down. She sat down because the tone of his voice told her that standing was not going to accomplish anything. She sat with her arms crossed and her pulse loud in her ears and watched him open the top drawer of his desk and place a small black device on the desk between them. He pressed a button. Her own voice came out of it, compact, calm, the voice she used when she was concentrating. Wade, I'm giving him the papers tonight. If he won't sign, I need extraction at the south gate by midnight. Are you in position? The recording ended. The room was very quiet. That's not, Maeve started. Your voice? Silviu said. Yes. He folded his hands on the desk. He was not shouting, he was getting quieter, which was the thing about him that had always frightened her more than volume would have. Tell me who Wade is. And because there was nothing useful left to do with the truth, except say it, she told him. Wade Austin. Superstore parking lot in Burnaby. 3 months ago. Badge in a wallet. A rehearsed voice. A folder of documents with her name on them connecting her to offshore accounts she had never touched. He had told her she was looking at accessory charges for money laundering. He had given her a choice. She had been scared, and she had been already planning to leave, and she had told herself she would feed Wade small things, information too minor to matter, until she could find a way out that didn't end with anyone disappearing on her account. She had not given him anything that put anyone at risk. She had stalled, and then she had decided that the only real out was just to leave. She should have told Silviu. She knew that. She knew how it looked. But she also knew, with the particular clarity of someone who had grown up understanding that the floor could give way at any moment, that if she had told him there was a threat against her, the way he would handle it would pull her deeper into the world she was trying to walk out of, not closer to the door. Silviu listened to all of it without moving. When she finished, he said, I've known about Wade Austin for 7 weeks. She stared at him. I intercepted the first contact he made to your phone in October. I've read every message. I've heard every call. He said it plainly, without apology, the way he said everything that was simply true. You were right that you didn't give him anything significant. Nothing you passed along compromised anyone here. He picked up the rye and held it for a moment. What you don't know is that Wade Austin is not RCMP. The room shifted around her. He's on the payroll of a man named Barbu Misescu. Out of Toronto, the Misescu family has been trying to take our port operations for 4 years. Every other approach failed. His jaw was tight. So they got to you. A woman with a legitimate grievance. No criminal record, no reason to doubt a badge. They used your exit as a delivery mechanism. He set the glass down. The extraction Wade arranged at the South Gate tonight is not a protected witness vehicle. There are Misescu soldiers outside this property right now, Wade gave them our gate codes. Maeve sat with that for a moment. She assembled it the way she assembled things when she was very tired, carefully, one piece at a time. "He wasn't building a case against you," she said. "He was building a door into your house." "Through you," Silviu said, "yes." Then the first explosion hit the east wing. It was precise. It was not the chaos she had expected from an explosion. It was more like the punctuation at the end of a sentence you should have seen coming. The lights dropped immediately. Emergency power came on in yellow, and Silviu was already moving. Around the desk, a panel in the bookcase behind him swinging open under his hand, a compact pistol appearing from the interior. A radio. He keyed it immediately. Piotr's voice came back, tight with controlled urgency. "South wing breached, east garden. We lost 2 men at the gate. I'm pulling everyone to the central corridor." "Get to me," Silviu said into the radio. "Central hallway, north stairs." He came to her. He looked at her face for 1 second, not assessing, not calculating. Something more direct than that. "Stay where I can see you," he said. "It's all I need from you." "I can do that," she said. She meant it without reservation. They moved through the estate the way she had never moved through any building. Low along the walls, fast. The emergency lighting turning every familiar room into something unrecognizable. Maeve thought briefly and absurdly that she had cleaned this hallway floor on her hands and knees when a wine delivery went badly, and she did not recognize it now. Silviu kept his hand on her shoulder, steering. She kept her weight even, her steps quiet. She had a body that other people in this world would have called a liability, and she had spent 26 years moving it with precision and without apology. They reached the north staircase. Piotr was there. He appeared out of the yellow shadow, with plaster dust across his forehead and a shotgun in his right hand. 9 years as head of security. She had eaten Sunday dinner with this man. He had called her Panny Maeve the first time they met, and she had thought it was sweet. "This way," Piotr said. "Basement utility passage. I can get us to the garage." Silviu stopped. She felt him stop, not hesitate, stop, with intention. "The utility passage code was updated this morning," Silviu said. "I sent you the new sequence at 0800. You confirmed receipt." Piotr said nothing. "Which means you know the passage is sealed from this end." Silviu's voice had dropped to the register he used when he was not going to repeat himself. "So where were you taking us?" Piotr's face changed. The professional calm he wore, the way other men wore their lanyards. It didn't fall away dramatically. It simply became unnecessary, like a coat in a warm room. What was underneath was the face of a man who had made a calculation and arrived at a place beyond the point of renegotiating it. "The Western Docks," Piotr said. "Full operation. I built half of what you run out of this city, and I've been on the same salary for 6 years, Silviu. They offered me something proportional." He raised the shotgun. Maeve moved first. Later, she would not be able to fully explain what it was. Not courage, exactly, or not only that. She had spent 6 years maneuvering 200-pound linen carts around the blind corners of hotel service corridors. She understood the physics of weight and angle and proximity in a way that lived in her body instead of her head. She stepped into Piotr's right side, put her full 270 pounds into his elbow, and the shotgun discharged into the ceiling, with a crack that rang off every wall in the corridor. Plaster dust came down like snow. Silviu's shot was quieter. When the ringing in her ears had faded enough to hear individual sounds again, Piotr was on the floor and Silviu had both hands on her face, turning her head carefully, checking her the way she had seen medics check people on television, methodical, rapid, thorough. "I'm okay," she said. Her voice was someone else's voice, far away. "I'm fine, I'm not hurt." He held her face for longer than the inspection required. His hands were not steady. This man who had sat across from her in the study less than an hour ago. and listened to her explain what she had done with his best attempts at composure intact. His hands were not steady. "You pushed him," Silviu said. "I was closer," she said, "and I knew he was going to shoot." The radio crackled. A voice she didn't know, low and unhurried, the voice of a man who had delivered bad news before and knew how to carry it without amplifying it. "This is Radu. Mișescu soldiers are pulling back from the perimeter. East Wing is secured. Wade Austin was taken at the south gate. He's in custody. The property is yours." "Our people," Silviu said into the radio. Two from the night detail, a pause and Piotr. "Understood," Silviu said. He clipped the radio to his belt. He caught Maeve's hand and did not let it go. They drove to Cole Harbour in an armoured car that smelled of rain and gun oil, the North Shore mountains a black weight against the pre-dawn sky. Silviu said almost nothing on the drive. Maeve watched the city go by. Her city. The city she had been born in and had never had money to see from a great distance, and thought about the fact that she had lived here her entire life without once moving through it like this, in the small hours before morning, with a man's hand in hers, and the feeling that the floor she had always been standing on was still there, but was no longer where she had thought it was. The penthouse was clean and spare. Silviu poured her a glass of water, without asking if she wanted one, and set it on the kitchen island. He sat down. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. The jacket was ruined, plaster across the shoulder, and something dark at the left cuff. And he set the manila envelope on the counter between them. He had taken it from the desk before the study was breached. He had put it in his jacket pocket while the east wing was being blown open, and he had carried it through the corridor and into the car, and up 30 floors in an elevator, and now he placed it on the counter between them like a bill he intended to pay. He opened it. He took out the papers. He found a pen in the kitchen drawer. She had put it there herself 14 months ago, organizing the drawers the week she moved in, because she had noticed he never had a pen where he needed one, and he uncapped it and signed his name on the signature line with the same deliberateness he brought to every decision he had ever made in front of her. He pushed the papers across the counter. "I said if we made it through the night you could have the divorce," he said. He looked at the counter, not at her. "A private flight wherever you want. An account in Calgary that's had your name on it since we married. Radu will sort the rest. Wade Austin is not going to be anyone's problem again." A pause, small and weighted. "You're free, Maeve." Maeve looked at his signature on the white paper. She thought about 3 weeks of rehearsed words. She thought about Wade Austin in a parking lot in Burnaby, his professional voice, his manufactured certainty. She thought about all the months she had lived in this marriage, feeling like she was watching Silviu's world from behind glass, telling herself the distance was something she was choosing, that she was protecting herself, that the feeling of not quite being real here was the cost of staying safe. She thought about his hands on her face in the corridor, not steady. She picked up the papers. The sound of tearing was very clean in the quiet of the penthouse. Once, then again, and she let the pieces settle on the counter between them, like something that had served its purpose. Silviu looked at the pieces. He looked at her. "I'm not going anywhere," Maeve said. Her voice was steady with the particular steadiness of someone who's been afraid for a long time and has finally run out of things to be afraid of. "But I'm not going back to what it was either. I'm not going to be kept on the outside of your life while you manage what you think I can handle. I proved tonight that I can handle more than you've given me credit for." She held his gaze. "I want the truth, not every detail of every operation. I'm not asking for that, and I don't want it, but enough truth that when I choose to stay, I'm choosing with my eyes open, a real choice. Not a choice made in a room with no windows." She paused. "Can you do that?" Silviu was quiet for a long time. Outside, the rain had returned, soft from this height, nothing like the rain she had grown up under. "I've kept you away from it because I know what it is," he said at last. "I know what it does to people who live inside it." He was quiet for a moment. "But I also know what tonight was, and what it would have been if you'd been in that corridor without knowing what you were walking into." Another pause. "I can try. I won't tell you I'll be perfect at it." "I'm not asking for perfect," she said. "I'm asking for honest." He nodded. Then he reached across the counter and took her hand. Her plain, work-calloused hand that had redirected a shotgun an hour ago. In a hallway she had mopped on her knees, and he held it. "The life doesn't change," he said quietly. It was not a threat. It was something rarer from him, the straightforward truth, offered without packaging. "I know," she said. "So are you, and I'm choosing both of them. On the condition that you stop treating me like someone who needs to be protected from the reality of where she's already living." She looked out at the city below, the harbor lights trembling on the black water, the mountains beginning to shape themselves out of the dark as the morning arrived. "I was never afraid of the cage, Silviu. I was afraid of being invisible inside it. I was afraid of being the woman you kept but never actually saw." He looked at her for a moment. The whole of her solid and tired and entirely present face, the face of a woman who had walked into his study 3 hours ago with a manila envelope and had walked out of a hallway fight with her hand in his. "I see you," he said, plainly, without ceremony. "Then act like it," she said, "every day, not just tonight." He did not promise her anything elaborate. He did not reach for words that would sound better than the ones he had. He simply looked at her in the thin pre-dawn light above the city that was hers as much as his, the city where she had grown up broke and practical and stubbornly, quietly proud. And he nodded once, with the finality of a man who had decided something he was not going to revisit. Outside, the first light was beginning to define the mountains beyond the inlet, arriving the way November light always arrived in Vancouver, without warmth, without drama, without asking anyone's permission. Steady, persistent, the kind of light that does not promise anything except that it intends to keep showing up. Maeve held Silviu's hand on the counter between the pieces of the papers she had torn apart, and she thought that this was probably what choosing something real felt like. Not the relief she had expected, not the clean resolution of a decision finally made, but something quieter and more durable than either of those things. Something that felt, for the first time in a long time, like ground she had actually chosen to stand on.